Hey, Dudes and Dudettes, Mr. Theorist here, and welcome back to another Geeky Archive. I'm here again with the luscious Draven.
Yeah, you got it right this time.
Just about. I really had to think about it.
Yeah, that's all the dog's working.
Hey, I'm now a dad, okay? My brain is like screwed all of the
What was
time.
your excuse for before that?
Leave me alone, you must be my friend.
That's why I'm picking on you like this.
Oh, dude, he's so so mean.
You love it.
I kind of do. All right then.
Yeah,
today's video, we are gonna be letting me ramble on about Battlestar Galactica for a bit, and then we're gonna go into we had a discussion kind of off the
camera.
podcast, and I thought it was kind of cool to have an in.
Yeah, well, you seem to like picking my brain about it.
Oh, dude, I love hearing people's insights into their view of the world. I love it.
I've spent too many years looking into various things like that.
No, dude, journey, like stories of discovery are amazing.
Your face whenever we're talking about it, you're just like, huh? I didn't know that.
Dude, I love it. I love all that stuff.
Yeah,
That's why
I research it.
That's why shows that are so intricate in their storytelling
yes.
are the ones that intrigue me. That's why Fringe and this one, Battlestar, is so good. And I'll tell you the story, and you'll see it's really in depth.
I don't know much, but I know it follows a few different ideas that have been pulled from various world beliefs.
Yes, you will probably pick up on what beliefs there are better than I will.
I can probably pick,
because when, my personal way is I don't like using the beliefs that are already out there in the world. I like to use
that's what
sim theory's way of explaining them.
Yeah, well, the thing is as well, again, like we said before in other podcasts, belief is just a person's interpretation.
Exactly. So, right,
so
before we start going into other things, let's do my favourite show of all time, Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 remake. I don't like saying remake though, because it's almost a loose interpretation, because the old show was basically it uses the same basis, but it goes off in a totally different story. The old basis is
multiverse.
Kind of. Well, I'll explain the story, and I'll explain how I think it's actually in universe. Really cool. So the original concept of Battlestar Galactica is there are humanity on 12 colonies deep in space.
Cool.
They created these robots called Cylons, and used them like slaves.
Cool.
The Cylons gained sentience and basically revolted, almost destroying the colonies.
So basically the whole dystopian apocalyptic.
Kind of, but it's in space.
Yeah, some of them do like that.
So only a few survive, and one of the ships that survives the extinction of humanity is the Battlestar Galactica, and it kind of protects a convoy of civilian ships that made it out as well. And they travel across space with the idea that there's this mystical place where their gods come from, and they're in a mystical 13th tribe. And you find it's called Earth. And the concept is to try and get to Earth. So that's what the original show did, but the 2004 kind of emphasized a lot more aspects of it. So the story starts with it's saying that there was a previous Cylon war. Now initially it makes you think that the old show might have happened, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's sort of like a precursor.
No, it turns out that the events that lead to the Cylons revolting and stuff, that already happened. But humanity managed to survive, and the Cylons left. Now this show is based 40. Pretty sure it's 40 years. Oh, I hate the fact I don't know that exactly. I love the show, but it's numbers. It's the little things. I think it's about 40 years. It says that there's been an amnesty, so Cylons basically were like, look, we'll leave you alone, we've left. But humans had left basically an outpost so they could keep meeting and gathering information, but they haven't been coming to these meetings. But then this one time when the show starts off, there are two Cylons that look different to the Cylons we recognise, and it's also a blonde woman. And so she then starts cryptically talking to him, and this guy's an old man because it's a kind of like retirement job. Cylons never turn up, so people kind of have it as a cushy job where you don't have to do anything. And she's like, "Are you alive?" I think the line is, "Are you alive?" And then basically they missile the whole satellite, blowing her up as well, and the Cylons on the thing, and they get blown up. Then the same blonde woman then gets seen talking to a guy named Gaius Baltar. He's a scientist who has helped things like the defense systems of the colonies, and he's a little bit of a womanizer.
Oh,
he's
the stereotypical trope.
Kind of, yeah. But he really likes this blonde woman. He likes the way she feels, but he cheats on her, and it kind of upsets her.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's not really. It's kind of it is important, but it's more important to the grander story rather than just it's a romancy kind of. So there's like several strands that all happen at once. So I might be going back and forth to like the event of the thing going on, and then going back and forth. So his stuff, you instead of following her, you follow her, but him. It's like it starts off making you think she's the main character, because you do watch her snap a baby's neck.
Ooh.
And you actually hear the crunch, and it's like, oh, it's not nice.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not nice. Being a parent now, I watches in a so much different way. Anyway, so they're like together, and she's like, oh, I'll see you tomorrow, and it's hinted that she's helped him build the defense systems.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, sure, but I'm off doing something. She then leaves. Comes back the next day. She's got like a weird package with her, but catches him in the act with someone else. He slept with someone else, and she's really upset and really peeved off. She also helps him get his dad into a home. Like she seems really dedicated to him. So basically, they're having a big argument, and then she basically admits to him, "Look, I'm a human Cylon," and he's like, "What?" And she's like, yeah, and we're basically back, and we're going to annihilate your entire species.
Cool.
Thank you for giving me access to your defense system. And it's like, oh, but as all the explosions happen, she protects him, and he manages to just about survive. Then also at the same time, you've got a teacher, her name is Laura Roslin, who has just found out. The thing is some of this story is told in flashbacks, but it's easier if I tell you now narratively than tell you in flashbacks and stuff. So she finds out that her sister is pregnant. So they have a baby shower, they get a little drunk. Then the next day she gets a visit from the police. Turns out that her sister and mum died on the way home in a car crash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very sad. She's very depressed. And then she finds out when she goes to the doctor the day before the colonies get annihilated, that she's got cancer.
Oh, joy.
Yeah, and then she is doing a conference among the Battlestar Galactica, which is now the reason the show has started off where it is the Galactica is being retired, and Captain Adama is being given a different post. That's you. As again, these are all flashbacks, but it's easy to narrative. I just tell you that kind of thing. He's kind of like unhappy about all this. There's a tour going on the Battlestar Galactica as if she's already a retired ship, even though it's not properly. And it's making everyone uncomfortable. You can kind of feel it with everyone's a bit unresting. But because the whole point of the military is to protect against the Cylons more than anything else. Like there are other divisions that are for civilian-based stuff, but this lot is all for the Cylons. But the Cylons haven't been for a while. Everyone's a bit antsy. They're like people are insubordinate. There's a girl named Starbuck, which hilariously at the time when it first came out, she's a female character, but in the original 80s shows it was a male character. So can you guess how the internet reacted?
Yeah, I can imagine.
How the fandoms reacted at that point.
Yeah.
It was very silly. But but the thing is, I think they very deliberately wrote her character as a very tomboyish character to start off with. They do give her more of a feminine style to her character as the show goes on. It's quite nice. So they're all restless. The Galactica is being used like a museum, so you get civilians and military all alike. the Galactica. There's Captain Adama is going to be doing a speech, and then the colonies get attacked. The Galactica has to get the rest of the armies sorted because Jesus, the Cylons have turned up. They're going to destroy everything. Turns out, no, the Cylons everything's gone. Nothing's left. The Cylons just nuked every planet. Everything's screwed. The defense systems are screwed. Every military that's gone up against Cylons has immediately just been destroyed, and it's like, what?
Yeah, mass annihilation.
Everyone just they don't understand what's going on. So Adama then jumped, because this all does like a 2-part pilot, so I'm trying to just cram it downwards a little bit. So Captain Adama takes the rest of his crew to this kind of, it's like a safe haven, because it's inside this nebula that the gases and stuff affect Cylon circuitry. So the Cylons can't enter this region of space. So they're there, and they're about to they're going to just arm up because they're going to go back into the fight and fight the Cylons. So they get caught up in a Cylon attack, and the Cylons turn up, and immediately everything just shuts off, and they're like, what? And the only things that are unaffected are ships that aren't hardwired into a central system. And they basically figure out that the Cylons got access to the defense systems. Boltar, who we'll jump back a little bit. There are pilots that got involved during the Cylon attack, and they got caught. They were forced to land on Caprica, which is there are 12 colonies. Each one is named after a star sign.
I had a feeling because you said
Capricorn. It's Capricorn. Yeah, you got Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. I'm curious as to how some of them
Virgo.
Virgo kind of works as it is.
Say some of the others, and I might
It's Cancer.
Tauron is
It's
one.
Taurus. Pisces.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So the thing is, they're not all Libra.
It's kind of
that's the reason the 12 planet.
signs.
But Caprica is the one that is
and that
used.
does play into the belief with the star signs.
Oh, we'll get into that. We'll talk about that later. I do want to know
about
this.
the 13th.
Oh, we'll talk about all that. All of that
Yeah.
stuff will come later. Caprica is the planet. Is the one planet that basically the Galactica has come from. So most of the crew comes from Caprica. So if you ever do any flashback stuff, they can all just. That's why the architecture and everything looks the same, and because they're all from Caprica. It works.
Yeah.
So.
Costs are still making sense.
Hilo and Sharon. I don't remember if Sharon has a code name before. I don't think. Boomer, that's her original concept. So Boomer and Hilo are forced to land because Hilo is injured and they need to heal him up. They land and civilians come to be like, oh my god, look, we want to escape this planet that's being nuked. There's no escapes. We need to. So they take 12 people. I think it's 12 or they took 13. They took 12 or 13. It's something like that. It's not really relevant, but they take a small amount, which ups. I think I might have.
12.
I'm not quite sure. It might be an arbitrary number. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, what I'm getting from it at the moment seems to be.
Oh no! Don't worry. There's a lot of stuff that's all interconnected. I think that's pretty much arbitrary. Actually, maybe not. Okay, sorry guys. We're gonna look some stuff up.
Because the 12 you were saying in the star signs.
How many civilians did Hilo and Boomer pick up? Battlestar. This one. The number doesn't really matter. I can't find it. It might be a little bit a thing. Knowing Battlestar, it could be, and if so, that's another reason I can adore this show. And if so, thank you, man, for giving me yet another reason to lose. Anyway, so they rescue a bunch of civilians, and one of those civilians is Gaius Baltar, who is hallucinating the six. That's the model. That's the blonde human Cylon. They're sixes. So when I say sixes or threes or say, like, if I say a name plurally, it's because I'm calling back to the fact that there is a model that's called that. And there are a bunch of, there's like almost an infinite number of models, but the show will give characters to individual of those models. So I might go 6, but if I go sixes, that's because it's the models, not the individual version of the model. Okay? I hope that's also clear for the audience as well.
Yeah.
I think it does. Alright, so anyway, I need to have it up. I need to have it up. So they rescue them. One is Gaius Baltar. He's now hallucinating the 6 that he had fallen in love with. And he goes back to the Galactica. Galactica is charged to go back to the fight, but bumps into Laura Roslin, you know, that teacher who's got cancer.
Yeah.
Bumps into her, who has bumped into Apollo, who during the initial scrap with the Cylons, Apollo is the son of Adama, Captain Adama. He got stranded and ended up with a bunch of civilian ships. So he's been trying to keep the civilians alive while they've managed to bump into Galactica. Yeah. Galactica's like, right, I want to get every military personnel together. I'm going to go back to the colonies. I'm going to go, and Rosalind's like, well, I've got to tell you, kind of done the procedure systems of who's in charge in a situation like this. It turns out everyone in government's dead except me. But she's just basically a teacher. But she's kind of like so she's just about. Yeah, but she's been given the role of president.
Basically,
the entire colony.
By de facto, she's got the authority.
Yeah, so she's just like, look, the war's over. Like, we lost. We need to get out of here. We've got civilians. We just need to go. And Adama's like, no, we need to go to the fight. And she's like, look, we need to. And eventually, with Apollo also talking to him, he decides, yeah, okay. And then the way the two-parter kind of ends is basically humanity's all feeling really dreary, because literally there's
not 50, many left.
I think the number is something like 50,000 people left of 12 colonies. Not a lot of people left. Yeah. And basically Adama then has this really amazing speech. It sets up kind of like the president, the kind of the style of the show is. He goes, there's an ancient secret that only the military has ever been told, and that is that Earth exists. And everyone goes, whoa. And it turns out that even though the colonies have this, they have the religion. I'm going to get comfy while I talk about this, because this is going to be the long talk. Battlestar Galactica's universe has the religious idea of the Lords of Cobalt. And the Lords of Cobalt are these kind of 12 beings that basically were the beginning of the guiding of humanity. And that they come from this place and basically got on with humanity. And humanity and them lived on this paradise kind of world. Until they were exodized and the humans had to go live in the 12 colonies, which eventually did which they built Cylons, which led to the original war, which then 40 years later leads to this. So their history is also their religion.
History and myth.
So it's all kind of tied all together. It all is, but at the same time, there are some people that don't believe in the Lord's part and just to believe in the whole we screwed up because of the Cylons thing. Yeah. So there are characters. There are some characters who are heavily believing the idea of the Lords of Cobalt.
It's like the religious and the atheist.
Kind of. That's so what a lot of, and there are a lot of those kind of questions. Yeah. But when Adama starts going, there's this place called Earth, and Earth is meant to be this planet that the 13th tribe went to. So there were 12 colonies, but there were 13 13 tribe, this mystical tribe that never had a planet made, never managed to make a planet, that left during the early times of humanity living on Cobalt. And the 13th tribe went and lived on Earth. And he says that the military have always known this, and the military know where to go, and that we are going to go to Earth. And the whole thing is like, so say we all. And I love that line, so say we all. It's a great line.
It's a rallying cry.
But so he's talking about Earth, and it's like, okay, everyone's just like, wow, the paradise that we all talked about exists.
Utopia.
Yeah, we can go there. So everyone's all like pumped up for it, and I'm not going to go individual episodes, but
humanity's always been obsessed with the idea of utopia.
Yeah.
The perfect place.
This show, when it gets to that, is it's beautiful. So basically, the whole of season 1 of Battlestar Galactica. Let's slow down, take the time, because it's 10 episodes, and it's 10 episodes. Beautiful. I say there's one filler episode in this entire 5-season show.
That's good, actually.
Every other episode has like at least some
point
importance to it, and you're like, you can't skip it, because if you were to skip it,
you'd miss it.
You'd miss that important bit. So, and even that episode that is literally just a filler episode that doesn't do anything.
It kind of does, but in a different way.
It kind of does. Yeah, it is weird. It
just gives a bit of background.
Yeah, it's great. So season 1 is basically people deciding to go to try and find Earth, and there being, how do we kind of keep humanity in line? Do we just tell them the truth? Do we always be honest with them and just tell them that, guess what? Turns out Earth isn't real. The core characters, they all find out Earth isn't a real place. But then it might be. So basically, well, the thing is, Adama basically turns around to his inner circle, and they're like, so Earth, how do we get there? And like for most of season 1, he's like, I can't say. It's tightly kept secret. And eventually, he does admit to certain people, he's like, yeah, it's bull. Like, but we need a reason to exist. Like, if we don't have a reason to exist, what's the point in anything?
Oh, the whole idea.
It's a nice kind of idea. It is controlling, but I kind of like the idea, especially if humanity's at that point.
Yes, yeah.
Which, personally, I think there's an argument for that kind of thing to happen. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But
the problem is, though, that can lead to some disastrous.
Well, fortunately, most of them don't survive it. So, yeah, he admits that he bulled everyone. He wasn't telling the truth. But then his partner, not real partner, because there's a weird, in the early seasons, there's a weird kind of power dynamic between the Captain Adama and the President, where they kind of at times share power, but then their beliefs harden really hard, and then they go against each other. So they're kind of partners in the whole leading this.
They're joint leaders, but they don't always see eye to eye.
And the caravan of civilians, they always call the fleet. So they always go for the betterment of the fleet. So they talk about basically the 50,000 that survive that don't stay as 50,000 for very long.
That's what usually happens with that.
So season 1, I want to break down the episodes, but season 1's premise is basically he thinks that he needs to just keep everyone moving forward. Like, he doesn't really have a destination in mind. He just wants to keep moving forward, because keep going. If they stop, they'll just fall apart. So it's going to keep going. But the president starts hearing about she hears about this magical cure for anything, or this spirit
remedy to cure all
called Kamala extract, and she starts taking it, and it starts making her trip out. Well, that's kind of the excuse that characters that don't really believe in anything spiritual kind of use against her, is that she's just having visions. But you slowly start to see that these visions might actually have indicators to things going on around them. Like, she is at a podium trying to do a press conference to these groups of people who want to send news out to the fleet, and she starts tripping out that there's snakes on her podium. She goes to her spiritual leader for guidance, because go to your spiritual leader for guidance instead of a doctor.
That's how it works with some of them.
Some of them. Dude, rhetoric! I know what you mean. I know what you're trying to say. It's for some people, they feel that going to their spiritual leaders is
what the best thing for it. Yeah.
And if it wasn't for people knowing that there are people who genuinely take their medical jobs, like if I wasn't thinking about on a personal level and thinking it on just a systematic level, I can see why people would do that.
Yeah.
But I have met kind enough people, and I've talked to doctors and nurses just casually when you're with them, and you kind of go, yeah, why wouldn't you? They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they've spent years doing it.
Exactly. Anyway, we're going off topic here.
As always.
So, she starts tripping out. She goes to a spiritual leader, and she's like, "Oh, I saw a dozen snakes." And she's like, "A dozen? Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah." Okay. And then they start reading scripture, and she's like, "Oh," and in this book, she was like, "Oh, in the book of Pythia, it says that a dying leader will lead humanity to their end, and the dying leader will be signified with serpents of 1 and 2, or something like that. That indicates the amount of snakes that were on her podium, kind of thing." And so they're like, "Oh, is she the dying leader the prophecies talk about?" So she starts taking it upon herself that she is the dying leader. Because their religion believes in this idea of a secular notion that all of this has happened before and all of this will happen again. So everyone in any point in time would be playing the part of an aspect of their
basically
faith.
Reincarnation.
Kind of.
When the world does the circle, it then changes with different people as the
there are constant references of this on this cycle. I am this person, like those that are really drinking the Kool-Aid, as people would say, about the beliefs. Then that's kind of how when they talk about certain things, she's like, "Oh, I'm the dying leader. I've been tasked by the Lord of Cobalt to basically do this." So she starts believing that Earth exists because she started tripping out about their religion. Yeah. And most people around her are just like, "Okay, President, as long as she doesn't do anything crazy." Like, normally in episodes, she's not doing anything too crazy.
Like, we'll just leave her there. Let her be her.
Exactly. And they're like, "Okay, that's a sound policy. We'll make sure that policy goes." Okay, maybe not. No, don't be adamant. No, don't be adamant. And eventually season 1 ends where Boomer turns out to be a sleeper agent of a Cylon. You know, the pilot that was with Hilo and rescued all those humans. Hilo gave up his seat so Gaius could board the plane, and he stayed on the planet. So Boomer takes all the civilians, and they go to they manage to get to Galactica. But Boomer, all the way through season 1, starts having these weird visions, and on her mirror in a locker, she's been accused of being a Cylon. She's tripping out. She's trying to tell her boyfriend. She's like, "Look, I think something's wrong with me." And he's like, No. Someone's setting you up. Chill out. Everything's fine. His name is Chief. Remember that name because it's hilarious. It's hilarious the fact that he says this about Boomer. It is. So he tries to tell her, "Look, everything's fine. Don't worry about it." But the season 1 ends with her programming kicking in, and she shoots Adama. Everyone's like, whoa, Boomer's the son. They managed to get her arrested. At the same time, the president has told Starbuck, you know, that pilot, main character, that she needs to go back to the colonies and get this thing called the Arrow of Apollo, because they're going to use it on a planet called Cobalt. They're going to use it on the planet Cobalt that they found to open the tomb of Athena to show them the road to Earth. So they get Starbuck to stop her military job, to go to Caprica to get the arrow. She, while there, bumps into a bunch of rebels, falls in love, gets kidnapped, and almost forced into a breeding facility, because it turns out the Cylons, they believe in the one true God, and they believe, as part of their idea, that it's part of how they justify the death of humanity. Is when you we're gonna have fun discussing these kind of these things. So basically they like, we
like you said, in man I'm picking up on.
So they go, we are the children of humanity, and the children are God's children, and because they sinned, we must destroy them. Literally, this is how the story goes. This is literally it. So that's how they justify
in this show.
So they justify. That's how they destroy the con. The thing is that when we start doing the show, you start to understand why this is one of my favorite shows. You start look. I know what you're thinking. But it develops. So they justify the death of humanity because humanity has sinned and must be killed because of God. But they also believe that God wants us to procreate. But they find out every time they try to procreate. Yeah, every time they try to procreate, it fails. And they realize it's and some Cylons. There's 3 Cylons. There is it's not a Cavill. What's his name? I hate the fact I do. But there's a 2, a 6, and a 3. And no, it's not a 2. It's a 4. 4. It's a news agent. It's the news agent. You find out that there's a news agent who was among the Battlestar Galactica. Gaius finds this Cylon device on. Sorry, it's very backwards and forwards, but this is how my brain remembers these episodes.
No, it's fine.
He sees why he's hallucinating his Cylon girlfriend, who tells him, "Oh, it's interesting the Cylons keep finding you every 2 minutes, isn't it? That's a weird looking device." And because in his brain, he's a scientist, and he's like, "I'm hallucinating her. It's probably some weird Cylon thing in my head that's making me do this." He's like, "How can I warn humanity that is a Cylon device without looking like a traitor, because I know that I helped humanity get destroyed?" And he's like, "I'm gonna randomly blame you, rando." Literally, that's how it is portrayed in the show. Like, he's like, because this person,
the scapegoat,
looks at him funny, or I don't even know why Gaius chooses him, but Gaius chooses him, and then goes, "Oh, because you guys tasked me to test blood samples for human Cylons. Yeah, I've tested his blood and he's clearly a Cylon." And they're like, "Oh yeah, cool." So they grab him, rescue him, put him away. But it finds out that Gaius was right, that he actually is a Cylon. So he is among these that believe in this concept that if 2 people are in love, that a baby could be born. So they task one of their mates to basically go and fall in love with Hilo, who's been stranded on the planet, and the person they tasked is a boomer, but she identifies herself as Sharon. And they will be identified as Boomer and Sharon, but imagine they look the same person. Okay, so they're the same model, but they identify as different people.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. It's because it just normalizes this idea of people looking the same but being totally different. I love it. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So she starts tricking Hilo into thinking she is the boomer that left him on the planet. And she was like, "Oh no, I could never leave you." And she tries to get Hilo to fall in love with her, but in the process, she does actually fall in love with him and gets pregnant. Hilo finds out she's a Cylon, and they're like, "Whoa, what the?" And she's like, "No, I'm pregnant. Look, I love you." And he's like, he's all messed up in the head. They bump into Starbuck while she's trying to capture the arrow, and while Starbuck ends up in a fight with one of the blonde sixes, she manages to kill the six, but then she sees Hilo and Sharon, and she's like, she's like, "Well, Boomer's meant to be on Galactica, but somehow she's a freaking Cylon." She goes to pull a gun, and Hilo's like, "No, she's carrying my child. Leave her the heck alone. She's carrying my child." And Starbuck's like, What? And Hilo is basically the first. He's a good character to remember because he's the first one who begins to accept this idea that, yeah, just because the Cylons did what they did, they at the same time they are very much like us.
Yeah.
And you begin the show very much begins to blur the line because at the end of the day, the reason the Cylons originally revolted is because they were enslaved by humanity. Yeah. Humanity created them, and then they enslaved a new race of being.
Yeah.
So you can kind of sympathize with the Cylons to a degree. And it gets even better as the show goes on. So she manages to get the arrow, and then her, Hilo, and Sharon escape back to Galactica, taking a shiny new Cylon ship that kind of becomes important vaguely in a later episode. So they then go to Galactica, and while on Galactica, Starbuck starts pining that her boyfriend wasn't able to be rescued. And she keeps trying to get everyone. She's like, look, we can just go back to Caprica. There's a bunch of people already military trained. We can just go and rescue them. Please, we can just go and rescue them. And she and Apollo have a bit of chemistry, but once she starts having the hotties for the, his name's Sam, the leader of the resistance on Earth, she's like basically like, go away, Apollo. Like, I'm in love.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, well, this all the girls been giving me the eye. I'll go for a bit. So he starts having a thing. It's not really important.
Yeah.
Her name's Dee. I'll tell you about her a little bit later. So
careful.
I am so sorry, everyone who's listening to that. That probably was horrible. I am sorry. I'm flailing my hands like a lunatic.
You can't talk without flapping your hands, can you?
I've heard it's potentially like a neural thing.
Yeah, it's when your brain's moving too fast. You're trying to.
I'm trying to explain it with my hands.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they go up to the planet. Sharon is immediately imprisoned because, well, she's just like Boomer. But Boomer, if I remember correctly, Boomer manages to escape. She must do. Yeah, I think Boomer escapes at some point. Boomer is killed. That's what I remember. Boomer is a prisoner. She's carried through the ship, and basically one of the deckhands of Chief, because Chief and Boomer were kind of in a relationship, and sees how Chief is so messed up in the head now that because, like, oh my god, I dated a Cylon. What is wrong with me? Like, he's all messed up in the head. Early Battlestar is so weird because there's like so little nuance about the relationship between Cylons and humans at times. It's so weird.
Maybe that's done deliberately to try and blur the line.
Probably. So she by the end of season 1, they've got the Arrow of Apollo and they're gonna go. Then they got to the tomb. Boomer is dead, and we'll talk about her later because she's not really talked about for a while. And it's so the actress can focus on being Sharon because they're obviously using the same actress for Boomer and Sharon. And Sharon has more characters and story to go for. You find out that when they get to Kobol, the scriptures talk about when humanity comes back to Kobol, there will be sacrifices and people will die. The Cylons have turned up on Kobol and already killed a bunch of people, but they've managed to beat the Cylons now because it was only a small group of them.
Yeah.
And they're now trying to find the Tomb of Athena. We find out that in the scriptures, it's also said that the 12 colonies were guided by a lower demon, and they assume that it references Sharon because she is human Cylon.
Yeah.
So that the
hybrid.
Yeah. Not they don't use the word hybrid because hybrid is used for a different kind later on.
But basically along that principle.
Yeah. It's because they're beginning to. The only difference is the circuit. Like it's instead of like their brain is slightly different because it's using a Cylon kind of stuff, and they're able to interact with Cylon tech. But for the most part, they are human.
Yeah.
Like if you open them up, they mostly you would expect it to react like a human reacts kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's only when you start bearing them down to the to like the bare levels of the cells that you start to notice. It's basically so they can use normal people without
rises.
Without using CGI.
Yeah.
So they get to the Tomb of Athena. They put the arrow in. This really cool image appears where they've suddenly got grass underneath them, and up in the sky there are constellations that they figure out when they were on. That they say the 13th tribe, when they stood on the ground of Earth, they looked up at the sky and could see their 12 brothers and sisters. And they go, oh my god, we are standing on Earth. But it's more a representation than actual Earth. And like, okay, so they see different things like a nebula, like a blinking star, and they're like, oh, we've got star signs we can use to find our way to Earth. And
very star sign driven.
yeah, it's kind of cool. So that's our season 1 ends with them like, we know how to get to Earth. Cool.
A lot of different things from other cultures as well.
Yeah. Cool.
Quite a lot.
Cool.
From multiple different ones as well.
Probably very deliberate.
Because there's aspects of Greek in there.
Yeah, actually thinking about it, it is very deliberate.
Yeah.
When I tell you the end.
Athena and Apollo.
Yeah. Okay, so.
But there's also pulls from Christianity as well.
Yeah. Well, definitely. With the one true God and.
Well, not just that, because a lot of belief systems have that. But with a lot of the things that you've been saying, it's similar to things like that.
Yeah. It is.
They've definitely done their research by the looks of it.
Yep. So season 1 ends with them knowing that they figured out a way to Earth. So season 2 opens with everyone, yeah, we're gonna go there. But they they start meeting this guy named Tom Zarek. And the cool thing about Tom Zarek is the actor who plays him actually played the original Apollo in the 80s show.
Oh yeah.
And the cool behind the scenes thing is that he have actually wanted to read, because once it ended, he wanted to do Battlestar again as the main character and never could kick it off. So it's cool that he actually managed to get some type of part. And he is basically a terrorist character who believes that even extremism, even when it's not really necessary, is the easiest course of action to get a situation done. And he basically has been imprisoned on this prison vessel that is basically no one's really thought about this whole time, and it's been in the fleet. But all of a sudden, they've got to a planet where they have to mine a bunch of ice so they can actually have water for the entire fleet to use.
Yeah.
So they need a workforce, and they're like, well, we've got a bunch of prisoners, why don't we use them? And then the show also has some ethical questions of like, yeah, but they are still people.
Yeah.
Like, we are basically doing slavery here. And they're like, okay, so we'll offer incentives. So they're like, okay, so by the time. But the thing is no one's really being paid anymore. If you think about it, most of the fleet is just doing their job because they're doing their job.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It kind of like it does become slavery if you're just like, right, you're gonna stay in that crappy cell and you're gonna work and then you go back to that crappy cell. But if you're like, his incentive, the incentive is that they get to lower their sentence.
Oh yeah.
And most of them had life sentences, so it is kind of an incentive to like, actually, I could get out and be in the real world for a bit. So Tom Zarek has basically managed to religify almost the entire group of prisoners, and they're like, no, unless Tom Zarek tells us to, we ain't doing it. So Tom Zarek eventually has a bunch of demands that he sees as a little over the top, and to be honest, so does Captain Adama and so does the President, but Apollo is the one that pushes for it in the end. Because his main thing is he wants the government to have a true election. To be honest, the current president that's in power, she wasn't really voted in, she was just put there, and she's enacting policies that affect the entire fleet. But he knows that no one will give that up, and there's a few other things that he demands as well, but they're not really important. And he suspects that what's going to happen is the military are going to be like, right, Tom Zarek needs to die, and then we'll force everyone else to work. And he's hoping to become a martyr, and then his belief system he's created
will create a whole new splinter group.
Exactly, that's what he's hoping. What Apollo does is Apollo basically manages to get a gun because they took up a bunch of prisoners when they were trying to debate with the prisoner. When they were trying to debate, they took a bunch of hostages, the prisoners did. So Apollo basically makes it before Starbuck can take a SWAT team to actually kill Zarek. Apollo shoots a prisoner, points the gun at Zarek and like, look, I can shoot you here, I can end your life, or we can have a free democratic election, and like you can tell these prisoners actually, like you can lead these prisoners. Zarek gives in because he realizes he doesn't want to die, and goes, okay, fair enough, cool. So now they've got a workforce. Water shortage is never a thing anymore, they don't talk about it. They do mean to focus on one episode at least on what resource might be needed at some point, because there's a Tillian mine episode that happens where they find out there's this asteroid that has enough Tillian to fuel the entire fleet for like a decade. But they find out the Cylons have already found it, but they're like, what do? Do we still escape from them, or do we finally go and attack them? And that was the same episode that the Viper, the snakes thing happened, because you find out that when Gaius is talking to his hallucination, because he's trying to go like, look, maybe you're a hallucination, maybe you're not, but tell me, what is the weakest point? She's like, no, let God in, let God tell you where to. And he just goes there and points at a random point on the base.
Yeah.
Turns out it's a perfect spot, and Gaius starts to believe that, hang on, maybe I did let God in, maybe because I didn't think for myself and I let myself just be guided, that I pointed at something and it was because something flowed through me. And he starts to open himself to the idea that, hang on, maybe I can be more than just a scientist. Maybe there's something maybe I'm being guided, and maybe the hallucination is more, because she starts to say that what I actually am is I am an angel of God here to guide you. So he starts to think maybe that's what she is instead. As the series goes on, the Democratic election starts to ramp up a bit more, and the season begins to end with basically what's her name? President Roslin. That's it. With President Roslin basically rigging the election. Her aide rigged the election because you find out that basically Zarek knows he will never get voted in, but he wants to be in a position of power. So he basically goes to Gaius and goes, look, guess what? Turns out no one cares about you. No one means anything, but you are this really smart person, and starts to feed his ego. And he's like, oh yeah. And then Six is like, oh yeah, you should be president. You should say. And he's like, oh, okay, why not? I'm going to run for president. And President Roslin's like, we cannot let Gaius win because he'll let Zarek be deputy prime minister, vice president, and that'll just be the end. Like, so she rigs the election. She gets caught though, and they put Gaius in control. And Gaius turns out he actually gained a lot of following because he promised them to live on this planet. And but the thing is, the planet is not very hospitable. It would work as a stopgap maybe if you want to stay there for a bit, but you don't want to like colonize it and live there because it's not great. But because she rigged the election, she doesn't get to decide. They end up going to live there, and they live a whole year. Was it 2 years? I think so. Yeah, they managed to live an entire year there. On the last day, when they go to start landing on the planet, a nuke gets set off. And it turns out that Gaius had been seeing a different Six, who was at one point she was abused by an entire group of military people because the Galactica managed to bump into a different group of military people, just one ship. But it turned out this ship believed basically what Galactica did at the beginning, like it was going to keep going and fight the Cylons, even if it meant stripping every civilian ship of every necessary resource to do it. And you find out they murdered entire civilians just because they wanted to get there, and that half of their crew is just civvies who were just been automatically drafted. And the president convinces Adama, like, look, she is going to want to take command. Like, you need to kill her before she kills you. Eventually, because the crew build a stealth ship, and this stealth ship helps them gather intel, both sides kind of step down. But because they abuse this Six, and Gaius kind of like, he becomes close to this Six, starts to treat her better, she gets better, and then she manages to convince him, look, you need to help me escape. But she escapes, kills the captain of the other ship, and Adama, because he's now got two vessels, he goes from being called Captain Adama to being called Admiral Adama. It's quite cool. So they've now got two ships, which is quite cool, and this Six that had killed Kane, she managed to flee, but she detonate because she wanted Gaius to run off with her and go get the Cylons and live among the Cylons and stuff. Gaius is like, no, can't do it. I'm a president. I'm not going to do it. She's like, okay, but he's like, look, I left you a gift, and basically left her a thermonuclear bomb for some reason.
Why not?
It's never explained why.
Perfect gift.
Never explained why, because even Gaius wasn't expecting it to happen, and she detonates it. So a year after everyone's been living on this planet they call New Caprica. Because why Caprica out of all the planets? Because why not? They call it New Caprica, and we live there, everything's nice. Most of the fleet have landed there, but some of them are still up in space. And then the Cylons turn up, and they're like, hi, we're here to live among you. Well, no. Season 2 ends not with them saying that, but with Gaius basically like, we surrender. Nah, it's fine, we surrender. And And you find out in season 3 that the Cylons have decided to the genocide of the human race was bad.
Yeah.
During that time, because they started off during season 2, and because Starbuck went back and rescued all those civilians that were on Caprica. But the Cylons started off and they don't understand why, and that's why they've managed to have so much story without any Cylons being about.
Yeah.
And it turned out because the Cylons had decided that maybe the massacre was wrong, because two of the Cylons who one's called Caprica 6. It turns out that's the Caprica. That's the 6 that originally fell in love with Gaius.
Right. Yeah.
And so because she managed to destroy the defense system, she was seen as a war hero. But because she still loved Gaius, and it turns out she's been hallucinating Gaius, so Gaius is hallucinating her, she's hallucinating Gaius, and she's also being slightly guided by Gaius, but in a less religious way, because he doesn't want to push her in that way. It's interesting because Gaius doesn't believe in religion, so his religious beliefs are being pushed. But because she believes in religion, it's not her religious beliefs being pushed. And he almost condescends her at times and talks down to her, and it kind of pushes her forward. But also reminds her that he loves her still and everything. And at the same time, she convinces Boomer, because it turns out that when she got killed on Galactica, there's this thing called resurrection, and every Cylon can be resurrected when they die, as long as there's this tech called resurrection that still exists. So she's back on Caprica, and she's been convinced by Caprica 6 that maybe they should try and tell the Cylons that maybe destroying humanity was wrong, and maybe we should do something else. But then when they noticed the nuke being blown up that happened, they were like, oh, humanity hasn't learned its lesson, it still wants to cause death and mayhem, so we're going to go back and we're going to live among them and teach them how to live. But basically they internment camp the entire human race and live in this tower that's been built over it, and you basically have 6 months, because if you notice in American shows, they love to give a reason why there's a break between the shows. So they say that during that break, the Cylons, basically that's the time it took them to take over the human race. But the few ships that were
tell
out,
the story without actually telling the story.
pretty much, and you can do flashbacks and things like that. It's great. It's quite good the way
It's
American
clever
TV shows.
tactic.
Exactly. But the few ships that were in space, which included the Galactica and also the Pegasus, that's the ship that the other crew came from.
Right.
They started off and tried to formulate a plan to come back to the planet and save everyone. Eventually, they managed to get there and save everyone. While that's been happening, the humans on New Caprica have been basically doing guerrilla tactics to basically destabilize the Cylons as much as possible. And the latest thing they've done is suicide bombers. And it's quite good because that actually gets brought up as a point later on as well. And the leader of the faction is Sultai. He was the second in command with Adama. When it came to any military discussions, so they managed to rescue them. They were all like, "We need to go to Earth right now." The Cylons are like, "Okay, what do we do?" Well, we've tried destroying them, didn't work. We tried leaving them alone, didn't work. We tried with them, didn't work. So the Cylons, almost to a degree, they back off a little bit. And it's never really explained why they back off so much at first, but then you find out why. So the rest of season 3 is humanity trying to find roadmaps along the way. Also, what happens is Starbuck starts having visions, and then when they reach this thing called the Nebula, which looks exactly the same as a painting she's always drew when she was a kid, she hallucinates one of the Cylons that, when she was stuck on New Caprica, basically tried to play house with her because in his mind he believes that the two of them are in love and need to stay together. There's also a thing about trying to convince Starbuck that when they put her on the planet on Caprica to try and impregnate her, they create a child, but they find out within the episode that the child isn't really hers, it was all a ploy. So it's not really that necessary to talk about, but it's there, and there's a little human interaction where the girl still wants to be Starbuck's friend, but Starbuck can't deal with the fact that I thought it was my child, but then it wasn't my child. Again, it's all about humanization. It's really good about shows. They make sure to give as much humanization to every character as possible.
Try to show them as not just this 2D blank villain or hero.
Starbuck starts hallucinating the guy that she's kind of got a thing for, because now he keeps telling her that she's this great thing that has this mission and that she has a destiny that must be fulfilled. She flies into this weird colour nebula and dies. That happens about 2/3 of the way through the season 3. So Starbucks, they write out Starbucks, and it's like, whoa, okay. And at the same time, you start having 4 members of the crew start hearing music regularly. They start just hearing this music, and the 4 of them hear it, no one else can hear it, kind of thing. That happens. Gaius, because he was seen as treasonous by humanity, was tried, but because they were like, look, we use suicide bombers as well, and we're not exactly anyone that was among all that insurgency, we're not exactly going against them, they cost human life as well, if that's the biggest argument we're having. So like, okay, so everyone gets a pardon because it was a weird time, people couldn't it
was a turbulent time, so they can't exactly.
Yeah, and you have about 3 episodes that are dedicated to the core of Gaius Baltar, because there are so many people like, I don't care, I want him dead, I just want him gone.
Yeah. Problem is, as soon as you start pointing fingers, they get pointed back.
Exactly. Gaius starts talking. He starts writing a manifesto while in prison that basically talks about how there's a small spirituality to the world, and the lords were fake, and it's the one true God that exists. And he starts accidentally creating a religion. And then after the trial, he doesn't know what to do, and the religious fanatics basically go, Gaius, come with us, and basically take him off. So for the rest of the season, he starts being indoctrinated into this religion he accidentally created. And the hallucination of 6 starts to like, yeah, do it, it's fine, just do it. Caprica 6, she gets captured and imprisoned, and Sol, the second in command of the Galactica, starts hallucinating Ellen, who is his wife, and Ellen gave up personal information about the Resistance when they were on New Caprica. So he killed her because it's like, look, she betrayed humanity. Like she had to be. So he starts, because of grief, he hallucinates Ellen's face onto 6 and sleeps with her. And him and 6 start to kind of have a relationship. It's very strange and weird.
Sounds it.
So the main plot point is Starbuck's dead. Apollo is trying to find what he wants to do with his life. 4 members of the crew are hearing this strange music and they have no idea what the heck's going off with it. The president is full on believing the whole religious beliefs now, and they always be pushed towards Earth and stuff. And her and Adama, because they had some special alone time on New Caprica before all the stuff kicked off. There's kind of a romantic relationship going off there now. But the show ends with the 4 basically following the music they hear to this center point in the ship, and they find out that while Gaius was given back to the... Oh, sorry, I need to go back a bit. There is this... all the way through season 3, Gaius becomes obsessed with the final 5. You find out there are 12 Cylon models. And we know of 8 of them, but we don't know about the final 5. And because of the fact he betrayed humanity, he wants to see if he is secretly a Cylon, because for some reason the 8 Cylons, it's only 7, but there's 8 models. Because there's a secret model, and we'll talk about him a little bit. The actual reason the writer has annoys me, and that's why the fans have got a much better reason for the existence of it. It's anyway. So that happens. Been an hour already. Jeez. Sorry. We'll wrap up soon. We've got to the ending of, near the end of season 3 now. Season 4, it breezes really quick.
We'll do this, and then we can always do the discussion for another video.
So season 3 ends after the humanity almost ran out of food. So they went to an algae planet to make sure they have enough food, so it's just something that the fleet can live off until they get to Earth, because things are getting a bit desperate now. Resources are running low, we need to get to Earth as quick as possible. So they go to algae planet, there's this weird temple, and there's a model called a 3 who's become obsessed with the final 5 as well as Gaius, and they've together been trying to find out how to find out who the final 5 are. And they say this temple can give her a vision so she can see the final 5. She has a vision, but she goes comatose, and then they box her because they say that she's too zealot. She basically endangered the Cylons with her beliefs. They need to box her entire line, and that's it. We can't. Gaius gets captured by the crew, and that's when he has his trial and all that stuff happens. So it gets said that there are 5 models. There's a final 5 models. Season 3 ends, and the 4 people that heard music, they find out they are 4 of the 5, and they have been the entire time. And it's confusing though, because they have memories, and humans have memories of them growing up. So it's like, what? How can we be Cylons? Every Cylon we've seen has been a set age, and we've never seen them age. How?
Yeah.
And they suggest that maybe the Cylons do, and we don't see it.
Yes.
And maybe that he is a different breed, and we find out they are a different breed. So season 3 ends with the 4 waking up and realizing, oh my god, it's an activation. We're Cylons. Same time, Cylons, the main Cylons have turned up, and everyone's like, Jesus, what the hell? At the same time, there's a random vessel that's turned out of nowhere. Apollo goes out to go look at it. It's Starbuck with her ship intact, even though Apollo saw her blew up and everything. And she's like, oh, I've been to Earth, and I've got proofs. What? So everything's all crazy. Season 3 ends with them like, oh, what? There's final 5. The Cylons are back. Starbuck's back. What the heck?
Yeah.
Season 4 opens, and you find out that basically one of the 4, his name is Sam. It's Sam. You know, the leader of the Resistance. He's become a pilot, so he jumps into a Viper, which is the main kind of ship that it's like X-wings.
Kind of the
like
nippy
X-wings.
little ones.
Exactly. That's the only that, and the Galactica is the only kind of vessels they have in. And they have Raptors as well, but it's not usually used for gunfights. Unless it's big military things going on. So he's in one. They all go to fly out to the Cylons, but the Cylons. I've got this like their main eye when it's the robot Cylons. You've got the ships, the Centaurians, which are what people would indicate as Cylons. They're the ones that were just metal. They're not humanoid. They're a human shape, but they're not metal. They've got like a weird shaped head, as they call it, and they've got a single eye, and that's kind of like an indicator of the robot model style, is that single eye thing. So the single eye opens and scans Sam, and Sam's eye flickers a weird thing. All the Cylons turn around and sod off. Season 4 is the main premise of season 4 is the 4 trying to be like, what the frick do we do? We're Cylon. What are we gonna do? Like, we've not been told to do anything. What are we gonna do? So they start having private meetings each episode of what are we doing? Which, why? I don't know why. Like, it's cool them having these weird visions, but that starts happening. While at the same time we have that storyline and the Cylon storyline, and what happens is basically Cavill, he is a number 1 model. He's the first Cylon model to be built. He's kind of like de facto leader when people need to be told what to do, because normally they have a discussion and they debate on what to do, but he sometimes
if
takes
they need
a de facto
quick decision,
which they do kind of pull up on the fact that it does, because he's like, well, what the heck? We need to lobotomize the raiders because they decided not to shoot, and it's like, well, it's because the raiders found out one of the final 5 were in the fleet, and he's like, we don't talk about the 5, we don't talk about them. We're going to lobotomize the raiders. That way we'll turn them into mindless killing machines, and we can just go back and do. And half of the Cylons are like, no, they're living beings. Like, they're all the same gene pool as us. Like, you can't. So there are certain Cylons like, no, we can do it. It's fine. We're going to do it. So because they start having a discussion about it, there's a deadlock. But then one model, not a whole group of models that are voting, but one single model decides to vote with the lobotomized groups, and it's Boomer, and because she's been kind of brainwashed, love bombed by Cavill into being like, oh yeah, we're Cylons, and you find out he's got this weird ideology of we're Cylons, even though we look human. He hates the fact that he's got human eyes and he can't look at the universe with X-ray vision. He can't, like, he's so angry at the world for it being so plain to him, and he can't experience it as a Cylon would. So he's got this weird idea of like everything being broken. I would talk about it, but we're just about to get to his story, so then we can break down on why he is the way it is and why different places took part. So they lobotomized the raiders, and the ones that didn't want to went, okay, guess what? We're gonna take the inhibitor chips out of the Centaurians. And they're like, what? And basically the inhibitor chips stop the Cylon Centaurians from questioning a command.
Yeah, so basically
it gives them free will.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And basically Centaurians start murdering a bunch of Cylons. And this basically creates a civil war between the two groups.
Two factions.
So Starbuck, she's trying to convince everyone, I'm not a Cylon, I'm a normal person, I've been to Earth, I've seen it all. And they're like, we watched you die. Like, what? And she's like, no, seriously, I've been there. So she tries to convince people, look, I need, like, we're going the wrong, because they keep heading in one direction, but she's like, no, go in the other direction. She keeps getting these headaches whenever they keep
veering off course.
Yeah, there's this thing called FTL. It's not really important, but it's cool to know. Is faster than light travel. And
I know what FTL is.
Yeah, it's like they teleport from one point of space to another.
A lot of shows use it.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Star Trek.
Yeah, so every time they jump to another spot, her head hurts because they're massively going away. So eventually Adama gets convinced, okay, for once in my life, because it's cool, it's like a switch. Like the religious person's like, no, she's a Cylon, don't listen to her. Let's go. We need to get Earth now. He at the same time is like, I don't know if you're a Cylon. I don't know if you're playing me. This could just all be a lie. But at the same time, I believe now, and I can't take the risk that it's not real. So he gives her a ship and goes, find Earth, find me some clues. So prove me right. Go. So she goes to do this thing. She's got a crew that's not quite sure about her because most people are like, she died. Is she
they're a bit so suspicious.
The show never makes it sure one way or the other for a long time, and there's always been discussion about it. So basically that is happening, and the crew's getting a bit uneasy because there's been no sign, but Starbuck's constantly changing direction. She seems really unsure. But eventually, just as a mutiny takes place and a guy named Mr. Gator, he gets shot in the knee, and his knee basically gets destroyed. And they're like, we need to get him to sickbay. And Starbuck's like, all right, fine, you guys go, because they bump into Battlestar, and it turns out the vision Starbuck had did actually involve the Battlestar. So it begins to blur this line between reality and the spiritual aspects, and maybe there is a level of quantification and like things being connected, that it's not all just hoodoo-doo-doo, but actually there might be some legitimacy to it, and there might be this grander design taking place. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with these people, have this talk. You guys need to go back to Galactica. And her second in command is like, no, we'll wait until this dead time. At this point, we have to go back. We'll go back at this point, and then. Sorry. So they wait until the last minute. Gator, unfortunately, has to lose his leg, which actually is important. And she manages to convince the Cylons to basically side with humanity. And you find out these Cylons are like the Sixes and the other models that basically didn't want to lobotomize and get free will to Centaurians. So you would say the good Cylons.
Yes,
so they start to side with the humans, and there begins to be this kind of uneasy alliance, and the Cylons are like, look, we'll make you a deal. We'll take us to the resurrection hub. We'll take the 3 Diana, that's the one that got boxed, who sold the vision. We're going to find out who the final 5 are, and we'll go our separate ways, and we'll leave you alone. At the same time, we'll give you all the information we have about Earth. The humans are a bit uneasy. They're like, will they really do this? They start to have contingencies in place. Everyone's a bit uneasy towards each other. There's a couple of casualties that are unfortunate. By this point, we're only because there's been a lot of casualties and disasters, we're down to like 37,000 humans left. There's like the numbers are dwindling, and it starts to really go down. So there's this alliance. There's a lot of characters. The they finally get Deanna out, and she admits who the 5 are. There's a bit of a "Ooh" at first, but then the 4 of the 5 are revealed. Because obviously we don't know who the 5th is. And they start to have, okay, what do we do? And like, okay, no, we'll be an alliance. We'll have the humans and we're Cylons. We'll all live together, and we're just going to go to Earth and trust each other, and it's fine. And they go to Earth. Turns out Earth has been nuked.
Because of course.
And this is when the final season finds out. Basically, all of the 4 of the 5 have visions, because it turns out the 13th tribe were Cylons. Way back in the ancient times, the 12 colonies made their version of Cylons as well, and it adds into the whole circular theory. And basically, this 13th tribe left Kobol before the Great Exodus, when the humans went their way, and went and found Earth.
Yeah.
And what turned out, unfortunately, there is over generations they got to a point where they no longer used the Cylon resurrection tech and learned to procreate.
Yeah.
And eventually forgot their idea of the issues of creating artificial intelligence, and created artificial intelligence themselves. And the artificial intelligence there rose up and nuked the planet. And the 4 of the 5, actually all the 5, because Sol's vision that he has is that Ellen, his wife, is also a Cylon.
Yeah.
So you find out that they were scientists who found this ancient tech called resurrection tech, resurrection, and they used it to basically escape when the disaster happened and get onto a ship.
Yeah.
But because FTL didn't get created, it took them 2,000 years to get to Earth. Get to the 12 colonies. And when they arrived when the original Cylon War happened, and basically found the Cylons were already trying to create hybrids themselves, the human. They're trying to create human models. They basically say, look, leave humanity alone, and we'll give you resurrection.
Yeah.
So the reason the Cylons left originally is because these other version of the Cylons came and basically didn't, because they came to try and warn their 12 colony brothers and sisters, look, don't make artificial intelligence, it's not good. But they were too late, and the Cylon War, so they take the Cylons with them, and they create the 12 models. Well, they create the other 8 models.
Yeah.
This is when we start to get an idea of what the 8 models were. And the 8 models were the Cavil, I can't remember the name, Twos, Deanna's, the Boomer model, and Sharon, who now gets called Athena because she's been brought into the military because she was very good at helping out when they rescued them on New Caprica.
Yeah.
So her model, but 5s, the 6s, the 7s we find out are called Daniels, and the 8s are Boomers. No, sorry, the 8s are Boomers. So those are the ones that probably there's some that are
some
they're
named,
not
some aren't.
no, they are named. It's just in the grand scheme of things, they're not really necessary. They're there as characters, but as far as like a development, they don't really get one, because it's always that they turn up and yes, they are that model, but it's almost like that model doesn't have any individuality.
Yes, they're kind of just part of the collective.
Yeah, it is weird, because there are some models that, like the 6s, where you find there are many different versions of 6s, and it might be because of their personality.
Yeah.
But I'll go into it afterwards. So basically, when the 5 created the 8 other models, at first they created the number 1, the Cavil. Then they made all the other models, and when they got to 7, they made a Daniel. And the Daniel model was a musician.
Yeah.
And Cavil was very jealous that Daniel was getting all of his mother's love. So basically, he poisoned Daniel and poisoned his entire line so that they could never make any more.
Yeah.
And that's why we never see number 7 model.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over Daniel, about the good and the bads about that in a little bit, but yeah, and basically you find out that the reason the 5 were in the fleet, were on the planet, is because Cavil had decided that because they created the 7 and he was a petulant child and he had enough, he basically killed all his parents, but because they got resurrection, killing them is more like knocking them out.
Yeah.
Took their new bodies, placed them on Earth with no memories at all, and basically decided, yeah, I'm going to come back in 40 years' time, and I'm going to nuke the entire planet. You're going to resurrect as Cylons. You're going to thank me for bringing you back to the Cylon way, and everything's going to be good. It's not how it happens.
No, as
always. But at the same time, he takes his brothers and sisters' models and does things to their memories to make sure they never remember who the 5 were, and that's why the other 7/8 models never remember the 5, because Cavill basically manipulated all their minds.
Yeah.
So that happened. Ellen, basically, she does get resurrected when she gets killed by Sol, and that's how we find out a lot of this backstory about Cavill and the Final 5 and all that, is because she gains all of her memories back, because when the 5 die, they get re-downloaded and they'll have all of their old memories instead of the new bodies where the memories were messed with.
Yes, yeah.
So she's got all of her memories. We find all this stuff out, and she basically talks down to Cavill, and he's like, don't worry, I'm going to cut you open and I'm going to find out how resurrection works, because as part of the deal for the good Cylons to work with the humans is they offered to destroy resurrection.
Yeah.
So they offered to destroy the resurrection hub so Cylons would become mortal. And so the evil Cylons, the reason they backed off and we had even less fights taking place between season 4 and 5 is because the Cylons really didn't want to risk actually dying.
Yes.
Yeah. So Cavill becomes obsessed with resurrection, and he's going to cut Ellen up to basically try and figure out. You can tell he really hates Ellen and the other 5 models. So Ellen eventually gets rescued by Boomer, who's like, nah, look, I don't trust Cavill. I want to rescue you. It's fine. She makes it back to Galactica. She gets imprisoned again. Ellen meets the other 5, and they start having some nice little moments. A civil war takes place on the Galactica because Gator, remember the guy who lost his leg? He worked with Tom Zarek because he believes that the President, that Adama, that basically all the main characters who make decisions in the show have been making the wrong decisions, because by letting the Cylons come and join the fleet, they have basically lost their way and they need to be put right. Gator reckons they should be put on trial, where Zarek thinks, no, they're a danger, they should all just be killed. So in the course of basically 2 episodes, the Civil War happens and is defeated. Gator and Zarek are executed as traitors. A weird thing that the show does, and I don't know what they were trying to learn from it. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me. But he has this thing where, because his knee hurts, he keeps getting phantom pains for the knee, and he keeps getting itchy on his knee. And they make a big deal about it all the way up until until his Civil War, and until the moment of his execution, where his knee stops itching. Never explained.
That is awesome.
Just there as a little thing, and I've watched the show about 8 times, and I still can't figure out why the itchy knee. Is it that the itchy knee was meant to drive him to it, and but the thing is, if we might be able to talk about it, when we finally talk about sim theory properly.
Yeah.
I might be able to. I kind of have an idea of why, but it is only explainable if you accept the concept of sim theory.
Yeah.
But because I'm just doing a breakdown of Battlestar, you don't really include thing is, you can't use sim theories as an excuse for it.
No, because that's your...
Exactly. So yeah, basically they get executed, and the Cylons are like, look, we're going to go to Earth. It turns out that Boomer rescuing Ellen was all a ploy, so she could get to the Galactica to kidnap Hera. Hera is the human Cylon hybrid of Hilo and Athena. Sharon, those 2. And basically the idea is that Cavill wants to kidnap her and cut her up, because then he can get to understand how a hybrid works, and then he can start building his own hybrid, and the Cylon race can be saved. So this is basically a climatic build up to near the end. You basically, at this point, the lines have been blurred. You've had people defending Cylons when they've been harassed in certain manners. I don't want to say the word because you know how YouTube can be. So So you had humans kill other humans because they're protecting Cylons. You've had Cylons acting extremely human and actually being like. At one point there is this one Cylon that during one of the later episodes where they're meant to be at peace, she just kills one of the characters, and the sister's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, because back on New Caprica she shot me and left me to basically bleed out and laughed at me the entire time. I can't let it go, sister. I can't let it go." And she's like, "Okay." And they're both sixes.
Yeah.
But different versions of the six. Yeah. And she breaks her sister's neck.
Oh, lovely.
And she's like, "Look, resurrection doesn't exist now. She's dead. You've had your pound of flesh."
Yeah.
And she's just like, and the girl who was attacked. No, not the girl that was attacked. The friend who watched her friend be murdered by Cylon was just like, her mind's just been
like what the hell was just going on?
Yeah. So the final episode, basically Adama rallies the entire crew together. Well, as much of the crew wants to, and goes volunteer basis only. We're gonna go to this final resting place because it's the last place the Cylons are gonna be. It's the only place they would have a facility to scientifically experiment on Hera. We're going to go there, volunteer only though, and we're going to attempt to rescue Hera. More than likely we're going to die, but here we go. And he basically passes down. He's just like, I've had enough of us losing hope and love. Yeah. And the show is really good because I'm only explaining it. I'm not doing a great job of kind of like giving you and it's why, even though anyone listening, like, I'm explaining the whole concept of the show. They are worth watching because
you get
I'm not good at cinematographically giving you cues to feel certain emotions and for the nuancey side of it.
The way the people
exactly.
are.
That's why even though I break it down and I know you know how it is, now you know the plot points. Because I'll end in a second. Like now you know the plot points. You're not watching it to discover this journey. You're there to experience the emotions and the journey that each character goes through. To me, that is why I enjoy rewatching so much. Is because I can watch. The
first one you watch the plot.
Because I almost have an eidetic memory when it comes to movies and TV shows. So I'll watch it and I'm like, right, I've absorbed the main kind of plot points because. Even on the second, you might not grasp all the little nods that there are some shows that you look back and go, "You sneaky sod! I know exactly what you mean by that now." Yeah, and
that's always good. That they put things in and then they answer it.
Which is why I always like shows are meant to be rewatched. They're designed to be rewatched. A lot of them are. Anyway, I'm diverging away. So even though I'm telling you guys, please go watch these shows for yourselves and just enjoy the journey that's taking place because it's so good. So they go rescue Hera. The Cylons are committed as well because they're like, no, this is Hera. She's our hybrid.
She's part you, part us.
Yeah, exactly. She is the sign of the union between us.
Yeah.
I'm skipping over a few points. I'm actually skipping over quite a chunk. That's why it's good to go rewatch it because a lot of the more nuanced plot points that are really good for watching characters' mindsets progress. It's worth going to watch it. So they go and they rescue Hera. It is an absolute chaotic battle. The Cylons are there. You find out there are some old Cylon models that the humans would have built.
Yeah.
There are some of those because what's quite cool is they're an Easter egg. They look exactly the same as the 80s Cylons, and that's why they're like, oh, they're the ones that the humans built in the old days. That's why it's like they definitely do nods to the 80s show.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this did happen, but not
on another cycle. That's how I would headcanon the 80s show.
So like the whole thing of like. They call it the cycles, but it would be like the multiple.
Exactly. I have two headcanons for the 80s show being connected.
Yeah.
I have one that is the sim theory excuse for how two shows with a very similar story can exist in my great idea of sim theory.
Yeah.
But for this, I think because the universe definitely tries to make you understand that it's a circular idea.
It's got its own like mythos to it.
Exactly. So if that's the case, if the universe is telling you, look, events constantly happen. It's just they could happen differently because that's how when I imagine secular theory, I don't imagine that the exact same event takes place once cycle. Like I feel that there would be a subtle difference. There would be
sort of nuances.
Exactly. So why couldn't the 80s show and universe be on one of these cycles that took place? We know that the cycle isn't just the 12 colonies creating humans and just about surviving. We know it includes Earth. We know as far as this movie, this TV universe is going, is that we've got a kobold planet that's also involved in the cycle.
Yeah.
The Lords of Kobold, to me, and the way I see the Lords of Kobold, because there seems to be a realistic side to everything they've spiritualized.
Yeah.
Because I think the Lords of Kobold might actually be survivors from an older cycle, maybe. What if the original Lords of Kobold are actually people from the original 80s show, maybe?
Yeah.
That have now they're on the, obviously maybe descendants of them who are on their own cycle, and part of their cycle is to be the Lords of Kobold that are introduced. So to me, anyone that goes like the 80s show isn't canon, like it is canon. The universe completely gives you ideas, and even if Ronald D. Moore tells you not, this is why I'm going to talk about this. So they rescue Hera. I'll talk about Ronald D. Moore in 2 seconds. So they rescue Hera. Everything is going to hell. The Galactica's being bombarded. We already know that Galactica is like on her last legs. She's even being gelled up with this special Cylon goo to try and reinforce her because she's falling apart. And they were at one point offering to sell parts of her off to other ships. So we know we're on the last legs. And Adama turns to Starbuck and goes, "Starbuck, put in some coordinates, get us out of there." And she's like, "Where? Where do I go?" And he's like, "I don't care where." And then we have a callback to a few episodes ago where Starbuck was, because they found Earth and she believes that Earth was her mission, that was what her purpose was. She's down in the dumps, and she's at this little bar that's been created in one of the ship's areas, and so she's drinking herself away, and she can hear a guy playing the piano. And she's like, she's having a bit of banter with him, and eventually she helps him write this song, and the song is da na 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 da na 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 da na 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 na, and it's basically Battlestar's variation of All Along the Watchtower. And the significance is that it's the same song that was the activation song of the Five. And also, back when the 13th tribe were on Earth, you find out the reason they know the song is Sam, when he was a Cylon back on Earth, he wrote the song. So he wrote the song, and we also find out that it sounds a little bit to what Starbuck's heard before as well. So she helps him write this song. Everyone then, because she starts playing on the piano and playing it, and at the very end they turn around to her and go, "So Starbuck, where did you hear that song?" Because the four of the five are in the bar at that point, and it's before they get revealed, kind of thing. And they're just like, "Okay, so where did you hear the song?" She's like, "Oh, I was just playing it with," and they turn, the pianist is gone. All the way through the episode, we're having little flashbacks to Starbuck's dad being they keep talking about Starbuck's history and how her dad and her had this really nice one, and she learned the piano because of her dad. And basically when she gets the way you do an FTL is there's coordinates. It's like a keypad.
You type in coordinates and it takes you.
And each time you type it on the screen, it makes a sound. So she's all like, "Huh." We find out that Hera had drawn a picture for Starbuck, because she can talk a little bit. She's like a toddler age. And she gave a thing to Starbuck, and Starbuck uses that picture to help write the music. And then she starts going, "There must be some way out of here," said the Joker to the thief, and she uses the coordinates from the song as coordinates to jump them to, and they jump to a planet.
I see.
And they manage to get to the planet, and they land on the planet, and they're like, "Okay, now what?" And they find out in the distance, because they're using binoculars, that there are not quite Homo sapien, but close to Homo sapien. And they make the thing and go, what are the chances that another human style species would exist on the other side of the planet? And you start to believe that the whole show, Gaius being given the exact coordinates of the Tillian mine to blow up the Cylon so they could use the Tillian to eventually reach it. The algae planet with the visions being left, and the five, it's the temple that she has a vision is called the Temple of the Five, but Ellen says herself that no, it was built before we didn't build it, we saw it on our way back. That's what we saw. So they start to say that, okay, this one true God was leading them all to Earth. And they all sit there on Earth. They're like, okay, so I guess we'll just be here. And they call it Earth. They call it a new Earth. And they decide that they are able to procreate. Some of them go off into the Highlands. I wonder what that place could turn into being
Yep.
eventually. And so they eventually decide that they're going to get rid of all their future tech. They're going to put it into the ships. Sam, during the Civil War that took place, he got shot and he got paralyzed.
Yeah.
So he basically can't do anything more. So they hook him up to the ship and basically use him and as the detonator. Well, not, because they fly it onto the sun. They fly all of them. They put everyone's system to follow just the Galactica, so all the ships are autopilot and they fly off. And they say it's amazing that even the civilians have turned around and go, yes, we'll do it. We'll go on the planet. We've had enough. That's it. Just put us here.
So basically, what I'm getting is they're saying that it's a precursor to humanity.
I'll tell you the exact time in a second. So, they all decide to go off. The president is actually dying of cancer now.
Yeah.
She basically fades away in this finale. Adama talks about how there's a plot of ground he wants to build a cabin, and the reason he talks about a cabin is because they talk about a cabin in when they're on New Caprica, and it's part of their romanticizing relationship together kind of thing. She dies in his arms, basically. Apollo and Starbuck kind of have because they've kind of not quite rekindled their relationship, but they're kind of
going that way.
Kind of. And then Starbuck turns around to Apollo and goes, "Well, I guess I'm going then." And he's like, "Where?" He's like, "Oh, I'm done." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "I don't know why to explain it, but I know I'm done. It's been amazingly." And they cuddle, and then he turns around, she's gone. They don't explain it, don't tell you who she is, what she is, anything. And that's why me and my uncle, we want a t-shirt that says, "What the frack is Starbuck?" Because frack is the word they use instead of the other F word that our world uses.
Yeah, clever.
It is. There's loads of little things that I'm not going to say because I want everyone to watch the show. It's so good. So, anyway, so it then flashes 2,000 years into the future. And we see Angel 6 and Angel Gaius. They are the hallucinations that Caprica 6 and Gaius saw. They're looking over the shoulder of Ronald D. Moore himself, reading a thing talking about mitochondria Eve. And you find out mitochondria Eve. And the DNA of her is Hera. So it's the whole Hera is our ancient ancestor.
So, basically that
we are. And see, now you know all this. When you understand things about sim theory, you start to go, oh.
And not just that, no, it actually plays well with the theory to do with the Bible. Actually,
yeah.
There's one.
We'll get to the end. We'll discuss this in 2 seconds.
Yep.
I can't wait to discuss it. Sorry, I've gone so long, but Galactica, it's amazing. So. They start having a discussion and they go, all of this has happened before, and everyone goes, but it doesn't have to happen again. So it's like, hey, the cycle might have ended, and that's because the humans and the Cylons, instead of always being humans create Cylons, Cylons revolt, Cylons destroy humans, humans have to flee, humans accidentally create Cylons, and it's a constant. In this case, the humans and Cylons have come together. The one true God has merged the two bloodlines together, the two species together. Yeah. Understood that actually there isn't much difference between the two of you.
Yes.
And that together you can move forward.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful and it's amazing, and it's one of the reasons it's a great ending. And yes, I also love the fact that it hints at the idea that we could all be descended from some ancient version of humanity that.
Well, there are theories with that and ideas.
It builds into sim theory, and
not just that.
It really does. I have a really good idea.
There's a lot of theories out there saying a lot of what we consider ancient technology is actually just it's ancient to us, but it was actually technology from another world. Because obviously everyone knows about the whole
the pyramids.
theory. The pyramids were built by aliens.
Yeah, well, the thing is I think Atlantis is one that, just because some of the ancient philosophers have even discussed it. Like, if it was just something like the pyramids, the pyramids, they must be built by aliens because there's no way that the modern man can decide on how to build. To be honest, the way that modern man deals with society, I don't have high hopes for us. No. Maybe the Egyptians were just better at figuring this stuff out.
That's the thing as well. Was it just that they use technologies that we don't have, that we've lost?
Yeah, it is possible. I think, or at the very least, methods that we haven't remembered.
Because when you say for the pyramids, and not just pyramids, you've got Machu Picchu, you've got Göbekli Tepe.
Oh, we can even have a discussion about ancient apocalypse in a sec.
Well, not just that.
They get brought up in his documentary.
The way they were built and the precision as well.
Yeah.
If you actually did it with what historians say, the tools they used, is damn near impossible.
See, the thing is
so where did it come from?
See, this is the thing, it's the one question that in Ancient Apocalypse that I must give, well, the one part of it that I give credence to, and it's the reason that I'm like, maybe he's onto something, is obviously because of the way Battlestar ended, and I told you that it's like, this idea of this old civilization that is a lost aspect of ourselves kind of thing.
Yeah.
He says in it that he starts to talk about myths and how there are, well, not just myths, but religions that have these moments where they like the Great Flood thing, like the Bible talks about it, other religions talk about it.
Yeah.
And yes, I understand to some degree that maybe when it comes to the Bible or something, it's an older religion that they've heard from and they've gone, we like that, we'll take it.
Or
but
it's like that's the story of our ancestors.
There are a
this
lot
is the
of
story
religions
of us.
though that are older, that are totally other aspects of the world.
Yeah.
And they share commonalities between them. And to me, it's
and
like
designs as well with things.
If that's the case, then where was I going with this? Okay, so to me, like, I think there is a lostness to maybe there's an older connection than what we already have. And to me, in the documentary, there is one bit which to me damns the natural order of, well, not the natural, the current belief system that's in place. Is he has turned around and gone, nobody's letting him follow what he's looking into. Like, the thing is, the easiest way, if you want to say he is talking complete bull,
is prove it.
Let him do it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't harm anyone to if you want to make sure it's legitimate, do it legitimately. Go with him and see if it's plausible. At the moment, stopping him do it, to me, for the more curious mind, it makes us think, why?
Yeah.
Why would you stop it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're not. Maybe it's not some conspiracy about trying to hide Atlantis for some weird reason, and it's about the lizards being in control. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying it's really strange when the system tells people they can't do something when there's no reason to tell them not to do it. It's strange. It adds conspiracy, and it's one of the reasons why the anti-vax stuff's happened recently. Yeah. Because the government was not transparent enough with it all.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry it took me so long to talk about Battlestar Galactica. I hope Ivan made some people at least be curious enough to go and watch it.
Got my brain thinking without time. It's done
I want to hear what's
inspiration from various belief systems. I mean, obviously the obvious ones. Two of the names.
The Apollo
and Athena.
Yeah.
They're Greek gods, and they did it closely as well because you said they were searching for the arrow of Apollo. Like I talked about in the Olympian video, he was an archer. Athena, one thing that I actually liked with you said she did this, that, but then she became more warlike.
Well,
that plays right into Athena. She's the goddess of wisdom, arts, and war.
Not you, dude.
I know. And war. So they're balancing both the aspects. And
because I think if we watched it together,
you kept saying,
is that important? Is the number
Greek.
12 itself important? Oh my god.
There were 12 Olympians, 12 Titans. The balance of that. Also,
probably 12. Yeah, I think there was 12 Lords of Kobold. There's 12 planets.
That's what I'm getting at.
See, this is why I wanted to actually talk to you about
the star signs as well. This is what I meant by the star signs. Growing up, we were always told there was 12, weren't we? That there's the 12 star signs.
Yeah, because of the way they do astronomy and all that, isn't it? Yeah.
There's 13.
Why don't they use the 13th then?
It's only recently been discovered.
Oh. See, again, this is why. Remember the discussion?
The 12, and then this mysterious 13th. And with what you're saying, the one true God. Obviously, that's pulling inspiration from a lot of monotheistic religions. One in particular, Christianity.
Yeah, and it does the same thing that you and me discussed as well. Is
the 12 disciples.
Because look at the way the show introduces, and it does that thing that you and me talk about. Is the idea that the monotheistic religions, they seem very flawed. And you initially, when Battlestar opens it up, the Cylons are super flawed because they're run by this idea we have to eliminate humanity because.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
but at the same time,
picking up a lot with what you're saying, the Cylons seem to be the way the show seemed to me is it was following the path of both monotheistic and polytheistic religions.
Yeah.
And the constant war that even in this world, there's constant war between monotheistic and polytheistic religions. Like and the term "the one true God" is used by so many religions.
It's personally, I think the one true God idea is so flawed.
Yeah,
it's so flawed.
And
you give one being the idea of being in control.
But the thing is, as well, it is flawed and it isn't. But it's flawed if you consider the aspect of this one being in charge of everything. He loves everyone. He does this, and he created everything.
Yeah.
How can he love someone and create evil? If he created
it's just a
evil,
question, isn't it?
He doesn't love everyone.
Unless, because to me, then
Unless
I would.
This is where it goes to the point of maybe there was one creator, one God.
Yeah.
But he doesn't actually interact with this world. He created everything and just let it be.
I would be fine with that.
One theory is that it's an idea that I've heard tossed about quite a few times that this planet is actually just a science experiment.
Yeah.
And there's a higher being. There's higher beings.
Scientology delves into this a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Not so much what I'm about to say, but similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
That basically we're living in a petri dish.
Yeah.
Or in a bottle. Whatever the species put us in, basically they created us and just left us to our own devices as a science experiment to see what we'd do.
See, I like that idea because to me, until science gets to that point where
that also explains why there's such thing as evil, and
well, to me that's
it's the whole balance of we actually determine our fate.
When we were having that discussion earlier, and we were talking about the idea of atheists and religions and all that, and how I understand atheists completely. I understand the idea of it. I just think that until science gets to that point, and we can all start as
actually for definite proof whether there is or isn't.
Well, there's aspects of myself with like the spirituality that I feel in myself. Like I can't feel a clear. Like at the moment, I don't think science can clinically explain those spiritual feelings I have at times.
No.
And also, like, even if someone turns around to me and says, look, I can explain every single aspect of your being on a scientific level. Okay, fine. But until, as a species, we are willing to start being kinder to each other and stop using facts and things like that to try and justify the inhumane things we do to each other, I don't want to clinically examine the universe yet, because we're not ready for that as a species.
No. And it's like, well, you prove that, but then you've got the idea of, okay, you proved that, but what if it... Because humanity's history is experiences.
Yeah.
Different people experience things different ways.
Yeah, that's another thing, is if you have ever examined yourself as you've grown up, your perception of the world has
changed.
Visually changes.
Oh, yeah.
Not to a drastic degree, but
subtle changes.
at the same time, we also know that we have things called hallucinogenics, and we have things that some people will declare for a fact that they lets them perceive things that the rest of us cannot see. And to be honest, I'm willing to accept that kind of idea. And what if, because I reckon it's probably hugely accepted, that maybe some of these older religions, when they talk about deities and stuff, maybe a lot of them were fucking tripping out at times. Well, what else are we going to do?
One proof of that, well, it's not proof, but it is the concept in the Norse times with some of their warriors, the berserkers.
Yeah.
They literally, before battle, well, not just the berserkers, but Ulfhedna as well, which are the wolf warriors.
Yeah.
Because berserkers are the bear warriors. They would eat hallucinogenic mushrooms before the battle. to give them that enraged.
And because we don't have historians, people to record the events taking place, all we get is first-hand accounts.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, or we have narratives that are created because of the evidence that is given to us, and we say things like narrative and stuff. And I know there are some people that think, oh, you say narrative like it's not the truth. Like it could be the truth.
It could be,
but at the moment we can't.
It's a narrative based on what we've got.
Exactly, which is fine, because at the end of the day, that's basically how history is played out for so long.
And that's why history is always changing. And like history books, in my opinion, should be rewritten every couple of years.
Definitely.
Because every new
But
discovery...
I think at the same time, things like that we need to have written into a constitutional law. There are certain things that the government can't put their fingers on, because I think if you have historical text that is constantly edited because it's new information we find out, we have to be careful to make sure that procedures in place to stop. Not going to say any party in particular, but maybe if a Tory party decided that they wanted to rewrite history books for trying to attempt another Brexit-style stupidity in another 30 years. No, well, 50 years or whatever. Like, maybe they decide that they'll tell their kids that, you know what, we're going to prep to get...
Yeah.
So they'll rewrite the history books to make people forget that...
Well, history is always written by the winner.
Exactly. And we all know that. We all know that.
Well, not everyone, unfortunately.
It's why, like, I'm totally fine for people to believe whatever they want to. Like, atheists, don't feel like I'm telling you can't exist.
No.
At the end of the day,
if
you want to be an atheist, if the way that you can accept the world is you can, by the clinical definitions and evidence that you've accepted, if that is enough for you, that is fine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I am another human being. I cannot tell you what to believe. The only time I personally have any take or opinion... Because
when you start telling me.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you were actually saying me to you. I was like, dude, don't call me out like that. No, yeah, exactly. It's when your opinion...
start pushing it on me.
Exactly, or pushing on anyone, really. Like, this is why the whole I know we just got for like the J.K. Rowling thing.
Yeah.
Of like people being really, really like, if she'd have just kept her mouth shut, right?
Yeah. You hold them views. Speak to people you know.
I'm not legitimising her for having transphobic views. Because at the end of the day, it's wrong to be a transphobe. It's wrong to be a phobe of anything. Because at the end of the day, just learn. Once people have an understanding and get to know things, you don't hate the world. You don't fear the world, because you realise the world is just experiences. There are people who are crappy in this world. There are people who are crappy in this world, but there are people who are crappy. And I think as a society, we need to remember we're people.
Yep.
It's one thing, we are people.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, this is one of the downsides as well to social media.
Yeah.
It gives
dehumanises people.
Gives everyone with a random opinion a voice.
Yeah, but I think at the same time it dehumanises, because you're no longer you're not doing what we're doing here.
No.
Or what other people do. We're not face to face, we're not thinking about whether or not we're going
questioning each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a digital age, it's going to change things.
Look at this millennials complaining about the internet.
We grew up on the internet. Well, actually, no, sorry, we're older than Google. That's not scary.
The thing is, the newer generations, they're better prepped for the world. They're not going to become as cynical. Hopefully, they're all cynical at the moment, but hopefully...
I think that's because of us.
Oh God, I think that we've taught our younger siblings and our cousins and stuff that the world is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I wish like the Gen X's and Boomers were more like, were just more willing to just be accepting that it's the system that's the flaw and it's not. It's not the things that you hate. There are so many people that they just have this fear of what they don't know. It's like, but just learn.
Yeah.
Like that's all you got. It's not even a hard thing to do.
It is for some, because it's stunted. We're stunted by things. We're stunted by religion. We're stunted by science. Because people, as soon as they hear one fact, they believe it straight away. They don't actually think, well, actually, maybe that's wrong. Because one of the things that, what's it? What was I going to say? Theory of evolution.
Yep.
Has been disproven.
Oh, it has,
to the point
yes.
of Darwin's theory of evolution is not what the theory of evolution is now.
Because it's been more proven to be more of a chaotic thing.
Yeah.
It's not It's not a linear
It's
style of
survival
thing.
of the fittest, which was one of the things that Darwin was big for. Has been proven to not actually be true.
That's something I think we should have a little discussion on. Have you noticed that, especially with the stuff that we've going on, is that the more we are figuring out about the world, and we were told we were always given like a linear narrative
it's like,
to things.
This is what it is. But it's
even
not,
over the
it goes
last 10
there,
years,
over there, right, left,
there's a
there, back.
spectrum to everything.
Because the one thing I've always said, the world is chaos.
It is.
We just try to make order of it.
Yeah. I think that'd be a nice place to end that video.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's a good place to it, chaos. We put order to it. That's what we're trying to do.
Sorry if everyone heard that. Anyway, that is a good place to end this one. That is an almost 2 hour long video. That's me talking for an hour and a half.
I was talking as well, so hey, mate, trust me. With some of the stuff I know, I could talk for longer than that. That's why we're breaking mine down into smaller videos.
True. So I was like, I'm just going to do TV show breakdowns. You do all the big breakdowns. So we do individuals. I'll have discussions alongside mine. Yeah, that was an interesting. Yeah, that's probably an interesting place to call that, and we will catch everyone in the next video.
See you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.